Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Wednesday night here. It's the night before the start of the NCAA tournament, aka March Madness, where tomorrow night we're going to see the first four, a couple playing games to actually get in the tournament, which are fun. And then Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock, is where the madness starts. And I wanted to cover the tournament, but I wanted a good co-host, and the man who's joined me tonight has been on here before, but he actually pitched the idea to me, so I have to give him the credit. And Matt Wright's back on at Writer. I think that's a great idea, and I'm glad that we're doing this together.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jug. March Madness is, as a hockey guy, it's weird to say this, but it's probably one of my favorite events of the year. I just love the whole aspect of, win and move on, lose and you're done. Teams from all over the country, 64 teams, 68 teams, I guess, with the playing games. But I just love the idea of, win and move on, lose and you're done. And it's madness. And that's the best thing about it. The name is probably the best name in sports, because it really is madness. And especially the first 2 weeks are so fun to watch. So I'm really looking forward to this year's edition of the tournament.
Yeah. And, this 2020, 2021 has been crazy on everything. And college basketball has certainly felt the craziness with different shutdowns for different periods of time, COVID circulating throughout the teams. But we got to the end of the season. Most teams got to play in their, championship tournaments, which are really money grabs. But we can get into that. But, we get, you mentioned the 68 teams. I have the bracket in front of me so I can reference it to everybody. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but looking at seeding, is there any teams that are too low, too high, anything that you disagree with what the committee decided?
Well, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be teams that are seeded too high. There's always going to be teams that are seeded too low. That's the reality of the situation. But there's a couple that really stuck out to me. And the one that I find seeded way too high is Creighton. They are every year. I just can't get behind them. Maybe I want to cheer for them because I'm a Blue Jays fan in baseball. So maybe it's the Blue Jay and Creighton. But every year there's a big parade about Creighton and how good they are. And they always seem to get knocked out in the first game or the second game. And if you look at the bracket, the Sports Illustrated bracket, they have them getting knocked out in the first round. And once again, they get seeded high. They lose. They get smoked by Georgetown. They get absolutely embarrassed. And then they still get seeded as high as they do. I don't understand that. But hey, good for them. There's teams seeded too high. It's always hard to judge. Michigan, maybe as a 1 seed, might be too high. But right. Michigan, I loved watching them all year. I thought they were dynamic. They lose that really close game to Ohio State. Could go either way. But so I'm okay with them as 1. Maybe say there's a 2. But, 1, 2, there's not that much of a difference. But honestly, I think they did a pretty good job this year, with especially a lot of newer teams that have never got into the tournament before seeming to get some pretty high seeds, which I'm okay with. I actually like that. I think they should celebrate some teams getting in for the first time seated a bit higher. But for the most part, it's never going to be perfect. But I like the way it's set up. I think some teams have a much easier road to, say, the Sweet 16 than others, but that happens every year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with the Creighton one. We're going to get into the Blue Bloods not being either in the tournament or ranked very high, but Kansas being a 3 seed to me is just ridiculous. They're really inconsistent all year. I look at their own conference. I don't think they're the best team in their conference. And then you put them as a 3 seed. To me, there's just a disconnect there where you don't have Duke, you don't have Kentucky. You got to throw somebody in there. You got to throw Kansas up high, and they're a perennial powerhouse. Like, they're Sweet 16, very consistent. But again, I just think they're thrown in there a little high. And a team for me, Matt, that I think, they're an 8 seed, but I think they could definitely be higher, is LSU. They lost Alabama. That was a fantastic game over the weekend. That was back and forth. I hope they somehow meet in this tournament, because I think that'd be fantastic. But LSU being an 8 seed to me, I think they could be higher. I mean, you look at Florida State being a 4. I look at Colorado being a 5. I think they could have easily taken one of those slots. So that's my only real gripe.
Yeah, I could see LSU. They're a fun team to watch, high scoring. They took Alabama. Alabama's a good team. It's weird to say Alabama's a good team in basketball, but this year they have been probably a top 10 team all year. So it's good to see LSU take them to the limit. I could have seen them higher, but like you said, back to the Kansas, they want to see Kansas make the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
So that's why Kansas gets a 3 seed. They don't get a 5 seed. Because if you look historically, those 5 versus 12, I think it is, those are always tough matchups.
Yeah.
So they'd want to give them a 3 seed. They want to see at least, they want to see Kansas win that first game for sure.
Yeah, they want Kansas Gonzaga in the Elite 8. That's what they want.
Exactly. That sells. That sells tickets, right? Or sells viewership, I guess, not tickets.
And putting them in a situation where they would play potentially, if everything goes right, Iowa. I like their odds. I think they could give Iowa a run for their money, and I'm not sure Iowa makes it to that far because we'll get into it. But I think this is going to be crazy because obviously not every big seed is going to get upset. The ESPN and Turner and these companies bulk that up every year, but we're going to see some really close games. And these smaller schools, they got a lot of seniors. They got a lot of players that have been there, done that. And in a tournament like this, that can make all the difference. If you got a couple freshmen who don't know what they're doing, the seniors can win out even if they're not as talented.
Happens every year. The thing about this tournament, especially when it comes down to the powerhouse teams, they seem to rely on their freshmen. So it's a make or break for those freshmen. You look at, I just thinking back to Zion Williamson a couple of years ago. I'm thinking back to Andrew Wiggins getting knocked out. It happens so much where you rely on freshmen, and sometimes the freshmen carry you all the way, but other times they don't. And you look at sometimes historically teams that make the Final Four who maybe are smaller schools like Loyola or whatever that name is. The year
Loyola, Chicago.
But Butler made it there a couple years in a row. They're relying on their
even Gonzaga,
who have been there and done that and played in the tournament and got knocked out a few years and learned from their mistakes. So it's going to be interesting to see. Iowa is a team that really intrigues me. I watched them all year, and I knock on wood, I made a lot of money on them because they seem to always be the underdog, even though they're one of the best teams in the league. But we're gonna touch on some players, and for Iowa, there's kind of a one-trick pony where it comes to Luca there. And if he's not going, if they can shut him down, if they can shut Garza down, then Iowa can easily get upset. And I think they win the first game, but their second game is going to be really tough, I think.
Yeah. We pivoting, just to give everybody just a few players to watch in this tournament that we think are going to be really good. You mentioned out of Iowa, Luca Garza. I mean, this guy's been in the tournament before. Last year, there wasn't a tournament, but he's done it before. We mentioned seniors. He's a senior. I don't know how good of an NBA player he's going to be because he's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to his tool chest there. But what I love about college basketball too, Ryder, is you can be a center, you can not shoot threes and still be really, really good. And we don't see that in the NBA anymore, but I think it's so refreshing watching college basketball because it's basketball at its essence. If you're bigger, you're stronger in the paint, you're going to get better odds of winning. Offensive rebounding, and Garza, he can shoot from the outside, but he can also dominate the paint area.
Absolutely. The college game can rely more on the big man than the NBA does, and it's exciting to see. And just touching on different players, you have to look at the big three on Gonzaga. They have 3 players. If you look at the rankings, they have 3 players in the top 10 players to watch in the tournament. That's basically unheard of.
Right.
It's you're looking at Suggs, he's going to go top 5 in the draft. Could go second, third, maybe even goes to number 1. You never know. And then you got Kispert and you got Timmy. Those are 3 really, really good players that if one of them's off, the other one can pick up the slack.
Right.
And that's probably why they're ranked to win the whole thing, is they have 3 players in the top 10. So I'm going to watch them on Gonzaga as a team. I'm going to watch all their games, depending on how many they play, obviously, but I think they're going to go pretty far. But another player is on Oklahoma State, Kade Cunningham. He's ranked to go number 1 in the draft, and he's the real deal. One thing about him, I find he turns the ball over a little too much, tries to be a little too fancy, tries to make the extra move a little too much, but he's exciting to watch. And Oklahoma State's going to go as far as he makes them go. He turns that clock for them.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, watching over the weekend in their battle for the Big 12, I agree with you. I think he's a little too careless, and I think he'll learn that, maybe not in this tournament as he gets to the NBA, but if he has a legendary tournament, they could easily I think they could get to the Final Four. And they are in a tough, they're in a section with Illinois, and Illinois is a good team. But looking at, I like the 2 names. Suggs obviously he's a freshman. Usually don't see a lot of freshmen one and dones at Gonzaga. He's going to be one. And kind of a guy for Illinois who's had a really couple of big games over the weekend is Kofi Cockburn. He's their center, and he's a traditional center. He's not moving outside the paint, but he can grab boards, he can finish, and he had 26 and 22 respectively in the semi, and then in the Big Ten championship game. So he's a guy that I kind of had circled too as an X factor for Illinois.
Yeah, for Illinois, really kind of came on towards the second half of the year. They weren't really talked about. And next thing you know, they have some big upset. I wouldn't call them upset wins, but just some statement wins, I guess, towards the end of the year, where he really stepped up, and the whole team in general stepped up. Illinois is exciting to watch, but I don't know. They haven't been there in so long that I don't know if they're going to be able to, but you never know. I don't have them in my Final Four, but they could easily be there. But one thing about Suggs, just a little fun fact, is he actually won Minnesota Football Player of the Year and Basketball Player of the Year in high school.
Right.
So that guy's an athlete, and he's going to be a great NBA player because he's a freak athlete out there, and he's going to make plays for Gonzaga. And there's so many players to watch. I know we're only touching on a few. On every team, there's going to be some stars, and there's going to be players that we don't even know about that become household names by the end of the tournament. It happens every year where someone's playing on a 12 or a 13 seed. They go on a run, and next thing you know, they're a household name, and the NBA teams are all over them. So that's another thing I love about this tournament.
Yeah, a guy I think if this team can get a couple wins is Smart off LSU. He can flat out shoot. He over the weekend he grabbed the ball and he kept them in games because he just kept firing. But no, you're right. There's guys. I think of the not Georgia, but the last couple of years, there's a team out of the SEC. I'm missing their name right now. Auburn. They made it to back-to-back Final Fours, and they had players that came back, and we didn't know who the hell. I mean, Auburn's a football school out of the SEC, and this team was, under Bruce Pearl playing some fantastic basketball. I think we'll see players that you usually don't hear about in the NBA. Again, guys that are in the G League now. But it's similar. This tournament is similar to the World Juniors, where you'll see guys that maybe will never have a huge impact on the NBA. But this is a huge spotlight event. This is bigger than any NBA regular season game. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And one other thing I love about this tournament is for a smaller school, if you can go on a run, it makes your recruiting so much easier for the next 10 years. Like you look at Butler, their recruiting is amazing now. You look at Loyola Chicago, they're back in the tournament, as a higher seed than they've ever been because of recruiting. This tournament, if you can go on a run, it sells your program. Your program gets highlighted to the nation, and people are talking about your program, and it makes players want to go there. So that's why if you can even be a Cinderella team and go on a run and win one game, if you can be a low seed and upset someone, it makes your recruiting for the years to come so much easier as a program.
Absolutely true. And before we move off players to watch, a guy I think I just have to go in there, Hunter Dickinson from Michigan. This kid can play. He's a freshman, but they got a two-pack of centers really at Michigan that are both a lot of fun to watch. And Michigan, to me, right, it's a Big Ten dominating college basketball this year, which is just crazy. But it's so hard to trust the Illinois, Michigan, even Ohio States, because I'm so accustomed to seeing them play football that I'm like, what the hell are they doing in this tournament? It's usually Wisconsin who's coming out of the Big Ten as a basketball school, so to speak. But Michigan's got some good talent as well.
Yeah, and normally you see Michigan State right there,
right?
Too. And they're not as high as they've ever been. They're not the powerhouse they used to be either.
They got to beat UCLA tomorrow night just to get in.
Right. So there you go. And that's crazy to say that you're watching Michigan State in a play-in game. That's that for anyone who's watched the tournament for years on end, that's just a head scratcher right there. Yeah. But it just shows that this year's been different than ever before. And I know we're going to touch on it in a minute here with Duke, but it just shows that this tournament is more wide open than I think it's ever been. And I think we're going to see a Final Four that we're not accustomed to seeing. I think normally you see maybe one team slide in there. You're like, okay, that's awesome. Nice to see that team. I think you could see 2 or 3 teams slide in that no one's even talking about.
Yeah, I agree. And, mentioning the Blue Bloods, the 4 big names you think of is obviously Duke. You got Kentucky. You mentioned Michigan State and even UCLA. UCLA is a good basketball program, or historically it has been. Michigan State is playing UCLA tomorrow night just to get in the dance, which is crazy. And then Duke and Kentucky are not even in the tournament. What do you make of this? And are you happy kind of as an observer?
I'm happy as an observer. I think I'm upset if I'm someone trying to sell the tournament.
Yeah.
I think that's a big, I'm really surprised they didn't find a way to get Duke into a playing game. It's kind of weird that they didn't. I like that they didn't. I don't think they were good enough to get in. I think that if you were better at the start of the year and you won more games, then you should be there. I think you shouldn't be. I hate that, people try and make excuses for good programs when they don't make excuses for historically average programs. Like, for instance, I'm glad that Duke isn't in the tournament, that they didn't just say, okay, Duke, because you're a household name, you're going to get a chance to get in. I like that they didn't get in this year. Even though I think if they were able to play in the tournament, in the play-in tournament in their division, I think they would have went on a roll because they had been playing better basketball, especially after their lottery pick, who I can't even think of his name right now. It's slipping my mind.
Yeah, Kerryon Johnson.
Kerryon Johnson. They won 5 straight games after he left. He said he wasn't going back. He's going to rest for the NBA draft. And then they went on a 5-0 run, which is strange to say, but I think they should have won more games earlier in the season to even give them a chance to argue they should be in the tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree. Kentucky had no chance. They were a terrible team all year. Duke, like you mentioned, they had to pull out of the tournament, the division tournament, because of a positive COVID test. That's bad luck, but that's 2020, 2021. So you got to roll with the punches. But I don't think they were winning that tournament. I think they had to win it to get in the tournament, clearly. And I don't think they would have anyway. But it's just good to see new blood. I look at like Liberty. Like Liberty's starting to emerge as a pretty good program when it comes to sports. Their football team has really improved. You see them get into the tournament, and they're a 13 seed. That's not terrible. They're playing Oklahoma State. They'll definitely be an underdog. But you mentioned Loyola Chicago. They're an 8 seed. I mean, they were a 15 when they broke through. I mean, that's crazy. Cleveland State, Winthrop, a bunch of schools that you wouldn't normally see. I like just seeing the new teams arrive, and Michigan State and UCLA playing for their lives tomorrow night, I think will be great entertainment too, because these schools are going to be livid if they miss UCLA or Michigan State. It's going to be a bloodbath for those coaches and for those ADs to try to make sense of why their team isn't in the big dance.
It's crazy to say that one of the most excited games I am for is a play-in game. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever said that before. And I honestly don't think I've watched many play-in games before. I'll wait for the tournament to start, but I'll be watching tomorrow night. I'm very intrigued to see who makes it and who doesn't. And historically, these programs have gone far in the tournament and have won the tournament before. So if one of them's going to get in, you never know. They could go on a run. They've had coaches that have been in the tournament for years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and another team that we're not talking about that historically has been a powerhouse is North Carolina.
Yeah.
I think they're a 6 seed. I want to say a 6.
They're an 8. They're playing Wisconsin in the first round.
So there's a huge game to start the tournament. Wisconsin and North Carolina. That's one I'll be keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I mean those two teams. I mean they win. If whoever wins that game gets probably Baylor, unless there's a 16-1 upset, which has only happened once. So that's a tough draw because Baylor, they got 2 losses on the season. They've been a really good team. So yeah, and yeah, I love it too. And looking at it, other than the blue bloods not being there, what's your biggest headline going into this tournament? Like if you had to kind of surmise it in one sentence or just one general theme, what would it be for you, Writer?
I have 2.
Okay.
Sorry for
I like it.
Number one, I'm glad we're here. I think that we said the same thing with the Super Bowl. At one point we weren't sure whether there was going to be a March Madness tournament. Even 2 weeks ago, they talked about potentially not having a tournament. So I think the fact we're here is something we have to celebrate. And the second one is expect the unexpected. And I think you can say that in every tournament, but this one especially, I think you're going to see some more upsets than historically you see. And I think you're going to see in the Elite 8, I think you're going to see at least 2 teams that have never made the Elite 8 before.
Interesting. We'll get into that in a minute. I like your one, we made it. And last year they had to cancel this tournament. It really was we saw basketball shut down, hockey. They basically said, yeah, we think we're going to be off for a week, 10 days, whatever, this COVID thing. And then when you had to shut down the NCAA tournament and how much money this makes every year, you knew this shit was real. And that we're a year in, we have a tournament. I'm relieved and I'm also excited, just like you. And my other big headline, it's gone kind of under the radar all year. Gonzaga is undefeated. If they run the table, they have a perfect season. You got to put them up there as one of the greatest teams ever. I get it's a COVID year. It's different. But you have an undefeated season. You're right up there with the UNLVs. You're up there with the your John Wooden's UCLA teams. It's a silent story, but it's also, I think it's something that will build if they get wins in the tournament.
Absolutely. My roommate Craig says it best. Nobody's talking about them. They're the best team in the tournament and nobody's talking about them.
Right.
It's weird to see that because I think it's the conference they play into. They don't play household names every night. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh, they're the best, so let's just not even worry about them. They're going to be a 1 seed, where it should be the other way. You should be celebrating how good this team is. But I think a lot of times too, they play a lot of late night games.
Right.
So a lot of people don't get the chance to watch them. And I can honestly say I haven't watched them probably as much as I should have this year. But the problem is when the game's on at 11 o'clock at night start time, and even in take Toronto, take New York, it's still a 10 o'clock start time. People aren't staying up to watch college basketball during the week. And they play a lot of week games too, which is forgotten about. They play a lot of Tuesday night, Monday night games where they're not getting done till 2 a.m. at our time. So I think that's the reason why people aren't talking about that much is they don't watch them that much. They're more focused on, Eastern teams, Eastern time zone teams, because they play standard times and they play on the weekend. They play Saturday afternoon, where Gonzaga plays a lot of games late night during the week, which is a reason why I haven't watched them as much as I should have.
Right. No, great point. I mean, they play in the West Coast and even their conference, they play St. Mary's, BYU. Those aren't sexy opponents. You see Michigan State, Ohio State this year, people are going to tune into that. Even the SEC really gained a lot of popularity in basketball this year. Seeing Alabama, LSU on your CBS pops up, you're like, okay, I'll tune into that. But good point by you. But yeah, Gonzaga's the number one overall seed. Obviously, in this tournament, you have 4 ones. There's 4 different regions: the West, East, South, and Midwest. So I thought we'd go through each region and kind of give our top 3 teams in each region. Currently, you could say it's the top 3 seeds. I don't think me and Ryder will go that way. I'll be interested to see what we do, but I'll kind of give you the floor. We'll start with the West, and that's obviously led by Gonzaga.
Okay, for the West, you have to put Gonzaga there. I mean, if they're not one of the best 3 teams in that division, then they really fell off the wagon in the tournament. But going in, they're right there. I like Iowa. I've watched them all year. Maybe they don't get in. I don't know if you take them or not, but I like Iowa. They've made me a lot of money this year. They're fun to watch. Garza's fun to watch. They're a Midwest team. Des Moines, great spot to visit. Great vacation spot. And then the last one, I'm going to go Virginia. Virginia, they struggle to score points historically in the tournament, but they've been to the dance many times. They seem to be playing okay. I'm going to go Gonzaga, Iowa, and Virginia.
So yeah, we have 2 of the same. I picked Iowa as well. Obviously picked Gonzaga. Yeah, I looked at this region, and I think it's one of the easier regions. For obviously that favors Gonzaga. And I was gonna pick Virginia, but I went with Oklahoma, and I picked Oklahoma. Just they've been up and down team all year. They're inconsistent, but when they start hitting shots, they're tough to beat. And I think I don't know how far they could easily be bounced in the first. They're playing Missouri. I think that's a great game. I mean, the 8-9 games are always great. You got North Carolina, Wisconsin in the South. That's a must watch for me. But Oklahoma's got some good outside shooters. They got some key guys in the paint. And, I think they played in a tough conference this year, and that's kind of gone under the radar. So taking losses in the Big 12 was not, as bad as it has been in past years.
I have nothing against that pick. I've liked watching them. Like you said, they played some tough teams all year. So their record doesn't really say how strong of a program they are. And that's one thing people forget about this tournament, that you can't look at records. You have to look against who they played against throughout the year. And I think that's one of the most overlooked stat in the whole tournament is they go by records. And you can't look at the records in this tournament. You have to look at who they play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, playing Baylor, playing, Oklahoma State a lot. I mean, and, even, the Big 12 was tough. I mean, we saw Baylor lose before their conference championship game. They only had 2 losses. So tough conference there, but I like Virginia. To me, they're still the champions. There was no tournament last year. So they still have that crown. Somebody's going to have to beat them. They got a tough first round though. Ohio's sneaky little team there. I don't know. I'm not saying they're going to beat them, but that's a sneaky game for me. A little Ohio just finding their way into the tournament.
Like, keep an eye out for them. And we're going to have on these four divid conferences, we're going to have one of our 3 teams that gets knocked out in the first round 100%. Or at least the second round. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
so
100%.
These picks, that's why they do the $1 billion bracket challenge. If you can get a perfect bracket, you win $1 billion, because you can't do it. So, But no, the West, I think, is probably the easiest. It's the easiest way to say Gonzaga should be there, Iowa should be there, and Virginia probably goes on a deep run too. So,
yeah. Pivoting to the East, who's your top 3 teams out of the East?
Number 1, I have Michigan.
Yeah.
I've liked watching them all year. They've been strong. They've got, like you said, they got the dual threat down low. I think they go on. I mean, I'm not going to jump ahead here, but I have them going pretty far in the tournament. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I like Texas. Not really talked about too much, but up and down year as well. But I like the way they play. They move the ball well. They seem to be able to play some defense, which a lot of teams in this tournament can't do. Yep. And Number 3, I'm going to go with the hot hand. I'm going to take Georgetown. Coached by legendary Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
And they have a chip on their shoulder. And if anyone has watched the tournament for a long time, Georgetown used to be a powerhouse. And that's kind of disappeared. When I first got into watching the tournament, roughly 12, 13, 14 years old, Georgetown was always a number 1, number 2, number 3 seed at the lowest. So they kind of gone away from their glory years, but I think they're starting to bring it back. And Ewing seems like he wants to be there for the long haul. So I like Georgetown. I mean, they just went on a run and won their tournament. So I like them. Who knows what happens? They could get bounced in the first round, but I'm going to go Georgetown for my 3 pick on that one.
Yeah, no, I like that one. Obviously, they were to win the Big East the way that they did. Obviously, that buzzer beater against Villanova, crushing Creighton, like you said, and you got Patrick Ewing. There's just a certain flair about them right now, and they're playing Colorado. I think that's a very winnable game against a 5-12, but 12s beat 5s all the time. Yeah, I also had Michigan. I took Alabama, and they're playing Iona in the first round, which is a bit scary to me because you got Rick Pitino there, and you never know what he's going to bring to the table. But Alabama's, I mentioned earlier, they're a really fun team to watch. You got Shackelford, who I think he's going to be a fun player to watch in this tournament, potentially a really good NBA player. I just like the roster. And the third pick was really tough for me because, I don't trust Florida State at all. I mentioned I do really like LSU, but they got St. Bonaventure, which I think they can handle, but they won, they're coming off winning a few games here. I went with BYU, and they gave Gonzaga their biggest scare all year. They really probably should have won that game.
I watched that game.
Yeah,
I watched that game, and
should have won that game.
They were the better team that game.
Yeah, and they got the winner of Michigan State UCLA, so that could be scary. But there's just something about this team that I like, and I think they're riding a good wave of positivity, playing Gonzaga tough. I think they'll be confident, and they play in a weaker conference too, but I think they're a pretty solid team.
Yeah, the only reason I stayed away from them is I didn't like the matchup where they have to play the winner of UCLA, right. Michigan State. I didn't like that, but there's a team that could easily make the Elite Eight. Honestly, they really could. They play, like you said, they played some tough teams, but that's one of the conferences out of the 4 where I think anything can happen. Agreed. I think you could see 11 of those teams make it to the Elite Eight, and there's only 2 can make it. But I think you can make a case for maybe 9 to 10 to 11 teams potentially out of that conference. So
yeah, I think it's probably the toughest region. We can talk about it, but yeah, like you said, you got Michigan, who's a clear favorite, but they're not a powerhouse in this tournament, historically. I mean,
they historically find a way to lose too.
Right.
They find a way to lose games, not win games.
Right. LSU, they're usually a one and done in this tournament when they do get in, but they're a team that's got they got a good look to them. Like you said, Georgetown, Florida State could find it. Obviously, they looked subpar, I think, in their tournament, but who knows? BYU, Texas, I agree with you. Even UConn. UConn, you get UConn in a tournament, they seem to catch fire, whether it's the men or women's game. They always find a way to win tight games.
Yeah, don't sleep on them.
But yeah, so that's the East. Moving to the South, top 3 teams out of the South, obviously led by Baylor at number 1.
Yeah, so I have Baylor. I have Ohio State.
Yeah,
and I was stuck between 2 teams, and I couldn't figure out whether I wanted to go Villanova or North Carolina. So I kind of kept those ones because they've both been there before. They both won the tournament in the last 10 years. I think the last 5 years they both won, but yeah. I've kept an eye on them. I think Baylor's the best team. Ohio State, they're either really good or really bad. They're either going to make it to the Final Four or they're going to lose this weekend.
Yeah.
So this one to me, it's you got to look at Baylor. They've been pretty consistent all year, but don't sleep on Villanova and don't sleep on North Carolina either.
Yeah, I had Baylor as well. I did have Ohio State, but I agree with you. I look at, I think they'll beat Oral Roberts, but they got Florida or Virginia Tech. Those are both scary games for me, where, if Dwayne Washington Jr. doesn't have a shot, who do they go to next? That's kind of, and Verdell's I like him a lot as a power forward, but beyond those two, they kind of shrink after that when it comes to putting up numbers. And Villanova, obviously they're great in the tournament. I worry. I think they could lose to Winthrop. That's one of my little upsets that I think could happen over the weekend. But my third team, I actually went with Arkansas. And Arkansas, again, they're a 3 seed, which is quiet. They're a quiet 3 seed. But, another football school, historically. But they got Colgate, which is another, and I like to see Colgate in the tournament. Honestly, I think that's pretty cool. But, they got Utah State or Texas Tech. I like that. I just like their matchups. So I think they could go far just based on their bracket. And then, like you said, if Ohio State's bounced before they play them, we could see them in an Elite Eight just based on the region.
If you look at some of the brackets from some of the insiders, some of the big names, they have them going to the Elite Eight. Mm-hmm. So it could very well happen. Like you said, anything can happen this tournament. That's why it's so exciting. That's why if you're not doing anything this weekend, or if you have an extra couple hours, tune in. If you're working from home on Friday, find a way to get the TV on to watch, because it's madness and so exciting. But yeah, I'm Ohio State, I'm Baylor, and if I had to pick between the two, I'm going to go Villanova over North Carolina. But to me, I think you're going to see Baylor and Ohio State in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the heavy favorites right now. And Baylor, I think losing coming into this kind of hurts them, but they've been a really consistent team all year. So they're definitely flying under the radar a bit for me. And that brings us to the Midwest. And this is interesting conference because we got a lot of teams that you don't normally see. And this could be a wide open conference, but who do you have top 3 out of the Midwest?
Number 1, I have Kade Cunningham. And what I mean by that is it's going to ride on his shoulders for Oklahoma State.
Right.
So I have Oklahoma State, I have Illinois, and then I have West Virginia as my third pick. There's a team that could get knocked out the first game. There's a team that could go to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So you just never know, but they've been there historically. They've been in the tournament almost every year. So I'm gonna go West Virginia. I don't have any picks that are really maybe the Georgetown would be my biggest sleeper out of all of them, but
right.
Historically it's
a tough team.
It's tough to pick against teams that have been there and teams that are ranked high. So, but Oklahoma State honestly is out of those 3. Oklahoma State, I love them. I really do. I like the way they play, whether they win or not. I mean, they could get knocked out on Friday or Saturday, but I love the way they play. They're an up-paced, fun team to watch. So Oklahoma State, Illinois, and West Virginia for me.
Yeah, oddly enough, we have the same 3. Obviously Illinois, they've been a really consistent team all year. I think winning the Big Ten, they deserve that 1 seed for sure. Oklahoma State, Kade Cunningham played to the final buzzer against Texas in the Big 12 championship game. I just like the cut of their jib. I like the way they play, and they could play Illinois in the Sweet 16, but I like them winning both their games to get there. And I look at the bottom, Houston. I have no confidence in Houston. Again, 24-3, but we throw records away here. They played in a weak conference, and again, I just don't love them as a team. And I picked similar to you. I picked West Virginia because they're a sneaky little team. They're a good team. They can make some noise, and I could see them going very far, just under the radar. And another team I almost picked. San Diego State's playing Syracuse. Syracuse is a sneaky team because it gets in the tournament, even if it's a smaller seed. They've been there, done that, like we mentioned. They could be a sneaky team for me too.
For sure. And one thing that you have to bring into consideration about this tournament, and one of the biggest factors are fans.
Mm-hmm.
This tournament especially is fans, and I don't know what the capacity is. I don't think it's very many, if at all any. But the one crazy thing about this tournament is if you're playing in front of your home fans, especially a team like Syracuse who lives off their fan base, without having those fans there, it could really hurt some of these teams.
No, great point. Syracuse, they got a smaller arena, so they could pack it with Syracuse fans. It's normally really loud. But from what I read, I don't think there's going to be very many to any fans because it's basically a bubble type scenario. They want to keep all the kids and the teams safe from COVID. So they're all playing in Indianapolis. It's the whole tournament's there. So I would be surprised to see fans, but I think this could really affect the teams that rely on it to kind of get energy, to fuel themselves, and how it propels them to victories.
For sure. And one thing that I thought was really neat throughout the year is I read an article about how coaches were dividing their players up for pregame meals, and how they would have their best player sit with a bench player, and have every time they'd have a better player sit with their bench player, and not have all their best players sit together, because if one got COVID, then you're losing your whole starting five. I found that very neat of how coaches decided how they were going to split up their rosters on the road, like in hotels and in meal prep and after games, where they sit in the locker room. I thought that was pretty cool.
No, that is cool. I like that too, because if you did it with all the best together, you're right, you're screwed. I mean, you wouldn't be, if you have a couple of positive cases, you're not playing in this tournament, point blank. So I like that. Before we get into kind of revealing our final four and going through that, is there one upset pick that you're confident with heading into the first weekend? We'll obviously be back next week. We'll preview next weekend's games. We'll talk about the first two rounds, Friday to Monday. But is there, in the first round, we'll just say that, is there a matchup that you're like, okay, I'm smelling upset here?
I never look at a 16-1, but the one team I like getting knocked out is Houston. And we just touched on it, but I just don't trust them at all. I watch them play. They're sloppy. They're not a great team. I think Houston could be a team that gets knocked out. And another one to watch, and I really hope it doesn't happen, but Iowa could get knocked out. And I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. But for me, it's Houston. I don't trust Houston at all.
Yeah, I don't trust them either. They're a 2 seed, but they're kind of a fraud 2 seed, if you ask me. I'm gonna go with Winthrop over Villanova. I'm not 100% confident with it. I don't think you can be 100% confident in any pick in this tournament, but Villanova lost one of their best players to a torn ACL. He's out for this tournament. Winthrop's coming in kind of this underdog team, and they're riding high too. Villanova lost in the quarterfinals of the Big East to Georgetown. So I just think Villanova's kind of been up and down all year, kind of like the Big East in general. And I could see them losing because I don't think this is one of Jay Wright's best teams that he's fielded.
I think that's a safe pick. And they could go all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah, they really could. Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about this tournament. This is why it's so unique, is that you just have to get hot for a few weeks. You don't have to be a great team all year. You don't have to have the best record. You just got to play the right basketball. You got to have the right person hit the right shot at the right time, and you can go on a run.
No, absolutely. Yeah, every pick we make or we reveal, like, it's number one, it's probably gonna be wrong. And then, a team could easily go to the Final Four that we say is going to be out the first weekend. So it's all a balancing act. But so let's get to the Final Four, and then we can also talk about, maybe we can reveal our Final Four, and we can put maybe our fifth team, and that's a sleeper team that's not a high seed that we see possibly making a deep run. Maybe they don't get to the Final Four, but they're in the Elite Eight. So, Ryder, I'll let you go first. Who's your Final Four?
I have Michigan out of the East. I have Ohio State out of the South. I have Oklahoma State out of the Midwest. And I have Iowa out of the West.
So that's going to beat Gonzaga.
I think Iowa is going to find a way to beat Gonzaga.
Okay. Who's your kind of sleeper team that will make a deep run?
I got a few sleepers here. I have Georgetown or Purdue. I have two. Okay. Georgetown or Purdue are sleepers I'll keep my eye on.
Okay. No, I like so yeah, I think we have one team the same, which is always fun. I have Gonzaga coming out of the West. I'm always hesitant to pick number one seeds because it never goes their way, and I've actually only picked one. So I think you picked Michigan, right? That was your only number one seed.
I'm the same way. I trust a 2 seed more than 1 seed, which is crazy.
Oddly enough, I do too, because I have two number 2 seeds. But yeah, I look at that region. I think Iowa's a good team, like you said. I just think it's Gonzaga. They're really well coached by Mark Few. He's gonna just say, okay, let's get through this. We can get through this region. We'll handle our business. Out of the East, I like Michigan more than the team that I picked. But again, I'm not picking another number one seed for whatever reason, which I should, but I'm going to pick Alabama. And it's crazy because they're a football school, but I think they're a ton of fun. I think they could lose to Iona, but like we said, this is all chaotic. I think they could lose to Iona in their first game because that's just the way it goes. But they're a good team. I think they're in a really tough conference. We've kind of mentioned that with the East. Michigan's going to have a tough road to get. Whoever wins this is going to have to earn it. So this one's the most crazy for me, where I think if you get a couple breaks where a team gets upset, you get an easier game. It could mean the world to you down the line.
For sure.
I have, like you, I have Ohio State coming out of the South. I think Baylor has been better than Ohio State this year. But Ohio State's gone through a lot of tough matchups. They've played Illinois, they've played Michigan, they've played Wisconsin. They've had to go through the grind to get here, and I think their best players will show up when they need them to, and they'll get past Baylor or North Carolina, like you said, maybe upsets Baylor, and then they get an easier path. And out of the Midwest, I picked West Virginia. No real confidence in that pick, but I like you. I almost picked Oklahoma State too because I love Kade Cunningham, but I worry that the offense will dry up if he has a bad game. And West Virginia, they got Morehead State than they could possibly have, San Diego State or Syracuse. They got some easier matchups, and then if Houston gets beat out, they could be in the Elite Eight, and then have to, then it's them against Oklahoma State, say, or Illinois, and then who knows. So I think the Midwest could be crazy, but West Virginia is the team I went with down there.
I was strongly leading towards West Virginia as well. I just couldn't pull myself to pull the trigger on them. Yeah. But like you said, with Oklahoma State, it's tough. We're asking a lot of the one guy. Yeah. And I don't want to undersell the rest of the team because they do have a good team there, but it really does ride on Cunningham, and all it takes is one bad game in that tournament and you're done. There's no, we'll get them next time. We'll get them in game 2. There is no game 2.
No.
So it's an exciting year that we're not talking about Kansas. We're not talking about Kentucky. We're not talking about Duke. We're not talking about North Carolina. We're not talking about Michigan State. Yeah. It's fresh. It's for a basketball fan who's watched every year. It's nice to see a different tournament in the same idea of, it's the same tournament, it's the same format, but it feels like a different tournament to me.
Right. And, in past years, we've seen Virginia play Texas Tech. That was the last final, and Duke was involved, but, this is just different because they're not there. They're not going to have the chance to run the table, so to speak, and have a blue blood in the final. You're going to, whether it's Gonzaga, say it's a Gonzaga Baylor final. Well, Gonzaga, they're still not viewed as a power conference. They're not viewed as a power team. I don't know if they ever will be, even if Mark Few continues to put out perfect records. maybe if they win the tournament, they will, because they've gotten to a final, but they haven't won one yet. And even Baylor. I mean, Baylor is a good school, but they're not looked at as Duke or Kentucky, like you said. They're just a school that they're kind of they punch up to those teams, but coming in as a number one seed, all these schools, it's really interesting to see how they've gotten here.
For sure. And we'll save, I don't know if you want to do our champion tonight, or if you want to save that for maybe the next podcast, maybe look at that after the first two games.
We can do it, because we'll probably both be out by the time.
That's our picks are probably going to be done. So
right. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I like a big old party in Des Moines, Iowa, baby. Once the border opens up, I am heading down to Des Moines, and I am celebrating with Luca Garza, baby. Let's go, Iowa.
Okay. Who do they beat?
Man, that's a great question. Well, like, I'm looking at my Final Four, and they probably beat a team that's not even there.
Right.
But I don't know. Flip a coin. Maybe
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, maybe maybe Iowa State, or Iowa State, maybe not Iowa State. Sorry, maybe Ohio State.
Okay.
Let's go Iowa, Ohio State.
Okay. I'm gonna pick Gonzaga to get to the final, even though I don't. In the back of my head, I'm like, there's no way they're getting to the final. They're number one seed. But I'm gonna go Gonzaga, Ohio State, and Gonzaga wins their first NCAA championship trophy. Undefeated season, COVID, they get there, they battle through, and somehow they find a way to have an undefeated season, the first one since I think the 70s. So that would be pretty crazy. And I think they have the team to do it. It's just, can they put it all together? And I think they will. I mentioned the region's easier. And if they don't have to play in Michigan in the Final Four, again, it's an easier matchup, and the way they're built, I think it's favorable to Gonzaga.
I like that we're both on Ohio State.
Yeah,
heavily. Hey, I like Ohio State.
We're both on Ohio State after how much we buried them in the college football.
Seriously, I know. When it comes to programs, I can separate between football and basketball.
Likewise, yeah. But yeah, I think this tournament's gonna be so fun. It always is. And like you said, if you're working from home, which a lot of people are, do your bosses really know what you're doing? Get the tube, find a second computer, throw on TSN, CBS, whatever you got, because this tournament is fire. It's on literally from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till about 1:32 a.m. at night. You're not going to find many bad games. And if you do, flip the channel, because there's another game on. So I'm so looking forward to this. And, it was a ton of fun going through this tonight with you, Ryder. And I know we'll be texting throughout the weekend about the different results and the different buzzer beaters that I'm sure we'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out how many times we're swearing at the TV. We'll have an over-under count on how many times we fill up the swear jar, because the tournament's so exciting. There's the swings back and forth, the momentum, it's great to have this tournament back. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to watch it, and I'm looking forward to hopping back on here with you here soon and talking about all the teams that we thought were going to go far that got knocked out.
Right. That's going to happen. So we'll eat crow next week for sure. But before we wrap, any gambling tips? I know you're a good gambler. Any gambling tips to our listeners?
I'm a gambler. I wouldn't say I'm a good gambler.
Okay, well, you're a gambler. Any tips to the listeners on how to approach gambling in this tournament?
Yeah. So actually, my dad and I were talking about this. We decided to put some money aside for this tournament and kind of get on it together. I think the thing you got to look for are ties. And it's crazy to say that in any other sport, you say stay away from the ties. But I think especially with the 8-9 matchups, look tie. Don't be afraid to bet for a team to cover the spread. Maybe not bet for a team to go out and win. Don't bet on a 13 seed to beat a 3 or a 4, but maybe bet on them to cover the spread of 8 or 9 points. Because one thing you see about in this tournament, there's not many blowout wins. You don't see a team winning by 25. So if you see a spread of, especially a matchup like a 7-10 matchup, and you have a 7 who is maybe an 8 or 9 points favorite, I say you take the 10 to cover. Because one thing about this tournament we talked about, don't look at the records. Look at who they played during the year. And if you like a team that's an underdog, maybe bet on them to cover the spread. And if you're looking to make some money, maybe bet some ties. And one last thing is, just for fun, take $2 or take $5 and throw it on a 4 seed or a 3 seed or even a 5, 6 seed to go all the way. Get behind a team, throw $10 on a team and try to make 1,000 just for a laugh to watch them in the tournament. And they win a couple games, then you're excited about it.
Yeah, no, I like that. It is fun to get behind a team because you can kind of, you live and die with them. You get focused when they're playing, and then you, like you said, you start throwing remotes at the TV, and then you peril as the team falls. But like it starts tomorrow night, the playing games. We got Norfolk State, Appalachian State to play Gonzaga. So congratulations. You got Wichita State and Drake. They'll play USC. The winner of that will play USC. Mount St. Mary's, Texas Southern. They will play. They're playing to get in. Then you got Michigan State, UCLA. So a lot still to be decided, but it should be a lot of fun. Ryder, great to have you back on tonight. And we'll be back next week to talk about all the happenings in the NCAA tournament.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. Have a good night. Everyone stay safe, and looking forward to catching up next week.
Absolutely. Everybody, like Ryder said, stay safe, stay healthy out there, and enjoy the nice weather while we have it, and enjoy the NCAA tournament. I'll be back soon. And until then, take care.